Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome. This is Scott Buckholz, and we are ready to get started with today's live Zoom property tour. Every Saturday, we feature one of our investors from our community, as we are a national community of real estate investors who work together, who collaborate, who learn with each other, who sometimes obviously make potentially do deals with each other, but more so, we are a group of community of, or excuse me, a national community of investors who love to help each other out. So, guys, again, my name is Scott Buckholz. I'm one of the hosts today for this property tour. We also have Yas Hawk on. She is our other host. Thank everybody for taking time out this morning to join us. I've been a part of this national community of investors for almost 6 years. It'll actually be 6 years tomorrow will be my anniversary. So I obviously will never forget the date, October 31st, Halloween. And I am a full-time real estate investor. I do real estate in Kentucky, Ohio, and Kansas. Again, been a part of this community for right at 6 years, and absolutely am so blessed and thankful to have found this group of investors and entrepreneurs and like-minded people. And I've got so many goals still to accomplish, but you know, today is all about Steve Johnson. Steve and I have known each other probably for about 3-4 years, and Steve is from Tennessee. His deal that he's going to be sharing with us today is right over the border in Georgia, in a town called Warner Robins, which I have been through there before a couple times. I've gone to Atlanta and I've cut down through there, and that's beautiful country there, absolutely gorgeous country. But Steve is a real estate investor, and I'm so excited to bring him out. Thank you, Ann. Appreciate that very much. I do again want to let everybody know that we're going to go to right about the noon hour, and that way we respect everybody's time and let everybody do what they need to do on a Saturday. I do want to let everybody know here that if you're either a part of our community already, or maybe you're a guest out attending this to kind of check out what we're doing and who we are, and get some golden nuggets from this property tour today. We do have right after this property tour, we have a live business introduction meeting. And what that basically is it is a time of about an hour to, I think it's an hour and a half long. It's on a different link, but you can actually learn more about our community, learn more about what we do, who we are, and how we collaborate with each other and support each other as a national community of investors. Now that's on a different link, so you'll need to get with whoever invited you out, and they will get you set up and registered and get you that link so you can attend. That starts at noon, or just a couple minutes after noon Eastern. As I know, we have people on from all 4 time zones right now. I've already noticed and looked at them. We've got folks on from Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. I've not seen Alaska yet. Usually we have folks, Larry jumps on from Alaska, but so guys, let's get this thing started. So Steve, can you come on out? Can you share your screen and come off mute?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Sure. Steve, I sure can. You are a quick change artist. That's all I got to say.
Because okay, people... well, some of you folks may know there's an important baseball game going on nearby. And if you're not a Braves fan, you should be. But anyway, it's game day, and I've got my uniform on. So let's get this off. Let's talk about another team. If you like football, we got a good football team close by too. So good morning, folks. I'm thrilled to be here, Scott. I just want to say thank you to you and Jans and all the folks that associated with this. I'm honored to be part of your program today.
Well, that's awesome, Steve. And thank you for showing us how quickly you can go from your Braves jacket to your Georgia Bulldogs shirt on there. That's fantastic. There's a lot of people on to Steve that have never met you before or never seen anything that you've done. Can you start off briefly a little bit about your story? Take a couple minutes there, and then maybe how you found our community.
Yeah, I'll do that. And in fact, I've got some slides that say it faster and better than I can. Uh, what's that? Bob Snyder says, pictures tell and stories sell. So my stories for sale. Let's see if we can get this thing to work. Now, can you see that, Scott? Property tour, 120 Villa North Court.
No, we can just see you still.
Okay. So let's back up. We got to share our screen. By the way, I'm technically challenged, so if somebody feels the need to sing during this, that would be good. Share screen. Okay, let's try this again.
Okay, there it's starting to come up now. We got it.
Okay, so my joke is hire the handicap. We're fun to watch. Okay, one more try. Okay, what about property tour 120 Villa North Court?
We can see you, Steve. We can
Good.
see that. Thank you.
Good. Okay. First of all, what I'm going to tell you about Steve's not very exciting, but I'm very thrilled to talk about these properties, this particular property, and why this property is important to me. But about myself, Scott, I have an attitude of gratitude. I'm grateful for Renatus. I'm grateful for all of you folks. I'm just blessed beyond measure. Now, so that you understand a little bit about me, has anybody on here ever been, God had to humble any of you? Well, if so, then you might can relate to this. But I spent quite a few years in the insurance business, and this goes back to my corporate America days when I really was doing well, but unfortunately I thought it was me doing well. And maybe you can relate to that. But I no longer do resolutions for the first year, but to give you a little insight on myself, I believe in setting objectives. In corporate America, obviously an insurance company I spent 35 years with, plus 3 more years as a consultant, and we had objectives, and objectives was much stronger than goals. But my objectives for 2021 is to be the answer, not the question, to be the solution, not the problem, to remind you how special you are, and to leave it better than I find it. Also, in the insurance business, we had the privilege of working for a lot of smart people and a lot of great salespeople. And I heard a CEO a few years ago say, he gave what I thought at that time was the best definition of success. Success, according to his definition, was going where you want to go, doing what you want to do, and becoming what you want to be. Now, here's the story on Steve, Scott, in just a few words. I'm a Christian. I'm a sinner saved by grace. I'm married to the love of my life, 36 years. My wife, Susan. I've got a son and a daughter-in-law, Michael and Leslie, 2 granddaughters, Kinsey and Michaela, and 1 daughter, Stephanie. I'm very proud of my family. I love them dearly. As I said earlier, I retired as a district manager, 35 years with the largest insurance company in the world. Then I worked 3 years as a consultant. Back in 1987, I purchased my first investment property, a duplex, triplex, and a single family. And then I basically sold myself to corporate America for the next few decades. I retired and I had a short stint in commercial lending. I did that for a couple of years, built a sales teams of doing commercial lending. And that happened right about the real estate bubble. So if you ever want to know when not to get into real estate lending, don't do it at the end of a real estate or during a real estate bubble. I retired. The week I retired, my father-in-law was diagnosed terminal with brain cancer. On Monday, on Thursday, my mother-in-law was diagnosed terminal with renal failure. My wife's an only child. I became a caregiver for the next 3 years, 3 months, and 11 days. And folks, that was the best job I ever had. Didn't pay anything, wouldn't wish it on anybody else, but it reminds you of what's important. After they passed on, I decided in 2018 to get back into real estate investing full time. Now, I did something in April. I Googled real estate investor training. Do not do that. Don't do that. But lo and behold, divine intervention, I got a call from Bill Omi in May of 2018. And Bill has been more than a friend, more than a mentor. He's a godsend. In June of 2018, I purchased the Extreme Combo. I've had the fortune, Scott, to do 30 deals in the last 39 months. I'm not saying that braggadocious. I'm just humbled and thankful for that. I currently have 14 properties that I control. I learned that I didn't necessarily want to own everything. I just wanted to control them with about $15,739 per month of monthly income, valued at just slightly below $2 million. And with only $260,000 of debt on that. So that's the story about Scott. Say I'm not impressed, but that was not the goal anyway. Okay, Bill Omi, and unfortunately my panel here is covering Bill, but I put this slide up to again go back to say thank you to Bill for what he's done for me. The folks in Atlanta, they've kind of adopted me, and I appreciate all the people nationwide that I've met from Renatus. It really is an organization of people that care and help each other. So a little further on a personal note, I believe in a balanced life. I try to focus on the 6 areas, including spiritual, physical, social, financial, mental, and family. And what I'm doing now with real estate and Renatus allows me to enhance every single one of those areas. Now, can you hear me, Scott?
Yes, loud and clear. You're coming through good.
I want to ask you this question. How much would you invest in this particular house?
Well, I would, first of all, I've learned a long time ago not to judge a book by its cover. So I would have to learn more about, looks like 123, it's Highway 123 there. So before I would give you that answer, Steve, I would want to know more about the market, the area that it's located, and so I could come up with a better evaluation.
Good.
I know that's not, I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but that's what I would do.
That is smart. That is wise. What can I say? This is the house that I grew up in. I lived in this house when I graduated from high school. And a few years later, actually many years ago, I purchased that house. It's kind of a shrine. Now, if you see that little rocking chair on the corner there, that's where my mother sat. And she did a lot of great things. She was not highly educated. One day in the 4th grade, she had to help her family raise crops. But she did something that I think is important. She convinced me that I was special. And I never got over that. Now, this is the house that I live in now. And that's the difference between where I started and where I'm at. Now, let me say this boldly. This is not my home. This is just my address on earth. But these properties, Scott, these are properties that I either own or I've flipped. I've done some deals with. And I put these up, again, not to brag, but just to show a myriad of the type of properties that I've been involved in. Here's some more. Most of these I still own or control, as the word would go. But I'm not dealing with small houses because I don't like big houses. But if you get around Bill Omi, and if you have not taken his course, now you should. Now, one of the things that is important is, why are we doing this? And I really believe this, that we have a responsibility and we have an opportunity to help others. And one of the things that I really like, Scott, is helping other people. And when I was dealing with the middle to upper middle income properties, most of those people had tremendous opportunities to buy houses and help. Now, this is just an example of 5 families here that I actually purchased properties, and I did owner financing because they could not get a loan. They could not qualify for financing. Now, let me tell you something that is important to me. because the house that I showed you that I grew up in, not only was it not a very impressive house, but we didn't even own it. All the time I was growing up, my parents rented properties. So it's a meaningful thing for me to help other people get in properties. And these are people, they're wonderful people, they're salt of the earth, and that's part of my why. So, baseball, anybody know there's an important baseball game going on right now? I want to use the analogy here of the diamond. And I believe my approach is best defined in looking at this diamond. The first part of the diamond is to picture the property. If you go to first, you locate the property. You go to second, you compare the properties. And third, you select, third base is where you select the property. Now, there's many different ways to locate them, to compare them, to select. And it really, I'm not trying to say that you should be doing what I'm doing. Quite the opposite. I'm simply sharing what is working and what has worked for me. So whether you're wholesaling, you're fixing flip, you're buying whole, you're lending money, these are all things that I've actually learned from Renatus and people like Bill Omi and a host of other wonderful people that have impacted my performance up to this point. Now, Scott, you mentioned right across the state line. In fact, I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but the property I'm going to show you is in Warner Robins, Georgia, which is 239 miles. That's quite a journey, and it's a lot further because you basically have to go through Atlanta. And that makes it another camel day journey. But the appeal originally to Warner Robins was my son and daughter-in-law and these two granddaughters. And I started going down there to see these granddaughters, and I fell in love with the little town. I must share with you some things about the area that really impressed me. Now, is there any better reason to buy property in an area that you've got two granddaughters? Is there really? Okay. Long-term rentals. Again, we're talking about locating the properties. One of the things that really important to me is to determine what I'm going to do with a property before I decide to purchase it or acquire or to control the property. Is it long-term rentals? Is it nightly rentals? Is it a lease purchase? Is it rent to own? By the way, that's two separate contracts. And if you've been exposed to Bill Omi, he's going to remind you why you should use two separate contracts. And again, if you have not taken the course, those of you who are Renatus students, Bill Omi, you owe it to yourself. Those of you who are not Renatus students yet, why not? Single family home, duplex, triplex, high rise, townhouse, condo, mobile home, etc. What area do you want to be in? Now, when we go back to the education, the essentials courses, the first 10 courses, I think if you're new at this, you should take all of those courses before you decide which area you want to go in, because you may be going left and finding out that you prefer the view to the right. Going through the essentials will allow you to focus in on what type properties that you're going to be most comfortable with. And properties, listen folks, if you love it, it's not a job, it's a way of life. Remember the second part, or second base, was finding properties. There's different ways, from wholesalers, bird dogs, drive-by, bankers, neighbors, probate, realtors, NOD. Does anybody not know what NOD is? Someone say, I don't. Okay.
I don't.
I heard you. Notice of default. Notice of default. Tired landlords, foreclosures, and REOs. Now we'll go back and talk about any of these you want to, because as we get through with this, there'll be plenty of time to do question and answers if anybody is still awake. Okay.
Steve, Hey, Steve, you're doing a wonderful job. Just, yeah, you've got about 18 minutes, so you're doing great.
Okay, all right. So foreclosures, in particular, auction.com. Now, the reason I'm going to talk about auction.com, that's how I acquired this particular property that I picked up. Auction.com, they do online auctions, live auctions, and my favorite now is Remote Bid. Those of you that are not dealing with auction.com, you should be. Okay, Georgia has what they call Super Tuesday. All the foreclosure auctions in the state of Georgia are held the first Tuesday of the month, notwithstanding a holiday. This is the auction.com crew. There was nobody there except me. Is there anything better than going to an auction and you're the only bidder there?
Sweet.
These two properties, and these are kind of midstream properties here, but these two properties I purchased the same day with a remote bid. I was actually bidding on properties in 6 counties at the same time. And there's a feeling of ambivalence when you find out that you just won the auction, right? Great, I won it. Or, uh-oh, I won it. Now, I'm talking about these two properties in detail here, and particularly one of them. Here's a certificate. Can anybody see in the middle of this paper what I paid for this property? Can anybody see that number?
Sure can.
It's $27,873. Now, there's no great deals out there. Why am I buying properties in Warner Robins besides the two granddaughters that I mentioned? Actually, the property values and prices in our area have gone crazy. You can't buy anything up here. There's too many investors. This is the other one. Can you see the price on this one? It's $10,100 if you're not able to see it there in the middle. Now, what does Zillow say this property is worth? Somebody help me out.
$116,400.
Okay. Again, I think this would qualify to some degree as a Bill owe me property. It's really, when you look at the picture, it's really not that impressive, is it? Comment.
Ah, I love it.
Colorful, right?
I love it.
I hope that was not the little boy's room.
Potential.
It looks like it was renovated.
No, it was needing renovating.
Oh,
They got a good deal on paint. In other words, it doesn't matter what color, it's just the price of, this is folks that was
Like
really-
the hardwoods.
Yeah, and I'm really saying that jokingly because listen, folks, if you know someone that's in foreclosure, been through foreclosure, that's the tough time. Now there was a great surprise with this property when I acquired it. I bought it as a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and it's on a single street in Warner Robins. And Warner Robins is exactly 6 minutes to the Warner Robins Air Force Base. There is a tremendous need for housing because of the Air Force Base there. Interestingly enough, the property prices, the sales price are much lower than Chattanooga, but the rental rates are much higher. Let me say that again. The purchase price is lower, but the rental rates are much higher. Backyard it needed some work. Needless to say, when's the last time you saw an air conditioner like that? Okay, with just a little bit of work, or I should say a little bit of money and some work, this is what the front of it looks like now. And that's before we do the landscaping, which is really my favorite part. I really enjoy the landscaping. It's kind of like my canvas that I get to do my work on. We're in the process. We're about 65, well, probably 75% complete on this project, especially when I show you what our exit strategy is. New Carrier HVAC system. Got a great way to buy HVAC systems. And ironically, the guy next door for 7 years worked for a heating and air conditioning company. And he convinced me that he could install this for me at a fraction of the price. And we became friends immediately. That is kind of what the inside looks. Now, again, we're not complete. We've got a lot of finish work to do. We're in the process. By the way, my wife has made me watch Forrest Gump 7,000 times at least. But you remember when Forrest Gump was running and he had a long beard and he was out west somewhere and he had a bunch of folks running with him or following and he stopped. Does anybody remember what he said when he stopped? He said,
I'm done running.
I'm tired. I'm going home. Well, that's one of the advantages when I'm working on my properties. If I get tired and want to go home, I flip the main power switch and I go home. For the record, that laundry room slash pantry is not pink. It's the way that light's shining on it. Now here, I still have to paint the cabinets and the cabinets, paint them and change the countertops. I have a particular style that I do all of them the same way. I buy the stuff in bulk and that makes it work well for me. The mirror there, that mirror goes in the bathroom that we looked at earlier. But it's amazing what a little bit of vision and creativity and work can happen with some of these properties. The floor there is underway. Again, it's got to be finished. Now, again, the backyard is really one of my favorite parts of this property. It's fenced in on 3 sides, so you actually got to access it through if you notice the picture on the right, put a new sliding door, we're putting up new siding, and we're going to landscape it and do a nice fire pit in the back. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to. Okay, $116,400 is what the Zillow says it's worth. The property right up the street from here sold for $98,000 back in June of this year. And it actually was not as nice as mine will be once we get through. Now, keep in mind, if I'm doing a flip, I'm going to fix it in a different style than if I'm going to do a rental. Purchase price $27,783. My rehab budget is $12,217, which means hopefully I would be all in for $40,000. Now, I look for some surprises, and I kind of figured that I would probably have to do the HVAC system. So that leaves me $2,830.04 to finish this project. And I really, really believe, Scott, that I'll be able to do all the things that I intend to do at that price. Now, Zillow, and I use Zillow not as the solemn gospel, but from a standpoint of this is the guideline, and sometimes I actually do better, but Zillow usually works fairly good. $1,050 a month is the rent. A house, by the way, this is a 1 street house that's got all townhouses, and they're building 2 at the end on the cul-de-sac. So there was room for 2 more. I really like to see people building in areas that I have property in. But the lady up the street was paying $1,200 a month for hers. And again, it's the same size. I didn't go inside her house, but $1,050 a month rent is probably, it won't be a problem renting it for that. So that's $12,600 a year divided by a $40,000 investment. That's an ROI of 31.5%. I know that doesn't include taxes and or insurance, but that kind of gives you an idea of what we're doing there. Now, here's where I'm at. All in, I'm right now at $37,170. I keep pretty good records of what I'm spending. My budget's $40,000. That leaves $2,829 left to finish it. So with any luck, I'll be able to do that. I'll be able to finish it. So let's get back. Now, let's back up. Scott, do you have any questions, or any of our folks have any questions about this property and why I'm doing the small houses?
You know, Steve, you're doing a fantastic job. We've had a couple questions that I've been able to answer. But you know, one of the things you were talking about is the difference in Warner Robins and where you live in Chattanooga, and talking about the market differences and the rent prices and basically the acquisition prices. So you were talking earlier and letting everybody know the acquisition prices are much higher in Chattanooga than Warner Robins, but the rent prices are higher in Warner Robins than they are in Chattanooga for comparable like items. So like this particular home is, how many bedrooms and bathrooms did you say?
It's a 3-2. I purchased it as a 2-2, but it actually was a 3-2.
Yes, and those are always nice surprises, right? So
Right.
as a 3-2, just for a rough idea, what would a 3-2 in a similar part of Chattanooga go for in rents?
Well, that townhouse, again, it was built in 1985. So a comparable and what I call a B neighborhood, A, B, C, I try to stay out of D, but a B neighborhood, it would be around 189 would be the purchase price for that right now.
And then the rent prices would be what?
You see, here's the thing, you don't have as many renters in this area. So when you start getting $1,000 and more, it's not that easy to rent the properties.
Exactly. So again, guys, you know, Steve has shared so many golden nuggets already, but obviously, you know, one of the things that really stands out is, you know, really got to know your market. You know, why did Steve, if you guys remember, go to Warner Robins? Why is he investing in Warner Robins? Why is he accumulating rental properties? Because he's got family. I mean, what other better reason is there to acquire property away from where you live, if not for around, you know, family? Okay. And Steve, one of the other things that you were talking about earlier is you know, you were going through your rehab costs. You know, a lot of times you'll have folks that you'll meet that are wanting to become investors, or maybe they have already started their first deal or so, and they're doing a lot of the work themselves. Now, on this particular project, are you doing some of the work or a lot of the work yourself?
Well, yes and no. I'm a better overseer than I am a doer. But I've been able to find some good people that need to work. And my neighbor next door, he actually did the HVAC system, and he did part of the demo, pulling up old carpet and stuff like that. And a investor prospect, a Renatus prospect, she turned me on to a guy that just lost his job that needed to work. So, you know, it's difficult to find good workers, but there are some out there. The short answer to your question, I kind of do what I call the delegation cyber chart. That means I decide what I want to do, and I hire other people to do the things I don't want to do. So it's about 70% hired and 30% I do myself.
Right, right. Vivian, great comment. Vivian said, besides buying or looking at acquiring properties where you have family, it's also a great idea if you're looking to acquire properties away from where you live. You know, what better place than maybe locations you like to vacation to or places you like to travel to on a regular basis. Those are always great places to look at. But, you know, Steve, you know, some of the things that you talked about today as far as, you know, comparing ABC properties. Can you explain a little bit what ABC property valuations are, as we'll have a lot of new people on today or people that don't quite know what that is?
I'm
Could you
sorry,
explain what ABC?
before you do that, can you explain where you went for the auction? Because like I said, I live in the Roberta area where Warner Robins is, close to that. And when I used to try to go to the auctions, they would always tell me it was at the courthouse. So did you go to the courthouse for the Tuesday of the first month in October, or when you went to get this property? When you went to get this property? Because I would always ask for when the auctions were in Georgia and where they were held. And they would say they were at the courthouse. So when you went to this auction to pick up these two pieces of property, were they at the courthouse this time? Because they would never really say, you know, where the auctions were held.
Am I correct in guessing this is Bridget?
Yes,
Okay, Bridget, how you doing?
I'm fine.
The short answer to your question is yes. All the auctions in Georgia, it's fairly uniform. The foreclosure auctions are held the first Tuesday of the month at the courthouse square, which in this case happens to be Perry, Georgia. Perry is
Okay.
the county seat of Warner Robins. And now, again, a plug to auction.com. They have three type auctions. One, they have an online auction, and I like that, but they're different days of the month throughout the country. Again, all the foreclosure auctions in Georgia are held the first Tuesday. There is live auctions where you have to show up, and I show you folks there. That's probably my least favorite, but the favorite is the remote bid. You can bid on properties with your phone. Now, back to the ABCD, okay? I found out a long time ago, if you keep it simple, and after you've done enough, you've got a lot of reference. So an A neighborhood is the best neighborhood to buy in. Now, like in Chattanooga, for example, there's some neighborhoods that there's no houses under $1 million. I don't shop in that area. That's not where I want to be, need to be, could be. But an A area, it's got good school zones, it's got high property values. Typical average home in that neighborhood is going to be somewhere in the $300,000 range. So an A neighborhood is one that you're excited about. A B neighborhood is more of a blue collar, working, clean, safe neighborhood that our customers would be in. Now, C neighborhood is one that's very close to B, but you got a lot of the properties that are kind of run down and need repair. A D is an area that I want to be in. If I wouldn't park my truck in that neighborhood, I'm not going to ask any tenant of mine to live in that area. So the formula is this, Scott. On a neighborhood, I will pay 75% of the after repaired value. I use TotalView, I use Zillow, I use Realtor.com. I've done my own research. So 75% of the after repaired value less what I anticipate my repair costs. That gives me a 25% profit margin. And if I've got to factor in, am I going to sell it myself? If I'm going to sell it with a realtor? But I've decided I don't like selling properties. When I'm selling properties, I'm giving the big fruit to the next person that buys it. Bill has changed my thinking on that too. But a B property is 65% of after repaired value. A D property is 55% of after repaired value. And the townhouse that I just showed you would probably be in a B neighborhood. But as you can see, I'll be in good shape with it. In a D neighborhood, again, if I was gonna wholesale a property, and I'll buy almost any property at some price, but you're not gonna get many that I would buy in D. It's gotta be a steal, not a deal.
Sure. Well, that's a great share. And obviously, guys, Steve's in Chattanooga, but this particular property is in Warner Robins, Georgia. And so you got to know what your market's about. You got to understand your market. One of the things you talked about earlier was Bridget had asked about auctions and that process. Every state is different. You've got to know, you've got to know your market. You got to know how auctions are being held in your area. So again, Steve is not, none of us here, myself, Steve, yes, none of us are, licensed attorney, realtors or attorneys or CPAs. I mean, you've got to do your due diligence, work with those folks, build relationships with those folks. And, one of the things Steve talked about was that in 2000, I believe it was 2018 is when you found our community. Okay. You had a phone call from Mr. Bill Omi. You must have seen something he might have posted on Craigslist or something on a roadside sign or Facebook or something, and it interests you enough to reach out to Bill or for Bill to reach out to you. You guys connected, and that's I believe that was about 4 years ago, correct? A little over 3 years ago.
Well, we're like 39, 40 months, something like that.
There you go. And something for folks that have kind of jumped on maybe late or after Steve went through his little bit of his bio. Did you say, Steve, that you've done, and again, I know you're not bragging or whatever, but so you've been in the community for 39, 40 months. And did I hear you correctly? You have done 30 deals, or you have the you have 30 properties or doors for rental. Explain that a little bit to everybody, because I saw a question on that.
Okay, so I've done 30 deals in 39 months. Now, some of those properties were fix and flip. If you noticed on the screen there, the property on the top left, that was a fix and flip. And interesting note about that property, I had 172,000 in that property. I sold it for 229. That was 3 years ago. The lady just sold it for 325. The lady
Wow.
From me. So that's what happened. But yes, Scott, I've done 30 deals in 39 months, but I currently own or control 14 properties that's paying $15,700 a month in rent.
That is fantastic, Steve. That's just amazing. It's amazing. I knew you were doing several deals. I did not know you had got to that number. And, we also had another great question in here a couple minutes ago. There was a phrase that you showed in some of your resources or your tools on that slide, and you used the word bird dogs. And somebody asked, what is that? And go ahead.
So bird dog is, I've got people that are looking for properties. I'll give you an example there in Warner Robins. I'm down there working in July. It's hot as heck. By the way, humidity, gnats, hot, a lot different than Chattanooga. I grew up in middle Georgia, so I'm familiar with it. But the trash man, the trash truck pulls up out in the driveway. So I run out and hand 2 bottled waters to the guys on the trash truck. I say, guys, I want you guys to help me out. I'm going to give you $10 for every property that you find me that it looks like the people have put their belongings on the street, because they won't pick it up. They'll pick up the household garbage, but that stuff sits there and you actually have to call the city and they'll send somebody out to pick it up. But when you see stuff sitting side the street like that, that means you got a tired landlord. That guy's a bird dog. And those two guys, now, you got to keep in mind, I don't pay them $10 unless I can go verify that. But bird dogs, some of them work for free, some of them want to get paid. But a bird dog is someone that's out spotting properties for you. And I say this thankfully, Scott, almost every week I get at least 1, 2, 3, 5 phone calls or emails, text messages from someone about a property I should go look at.
That's awesome. So now keep in mind, guys, you know, you need to know your city, you know your state. There are some markets where bird dogging, the official terminology of bird dogging and that practice is not legal. So there's other ways that you can build. If you're in a market like that, I can't name you one specifically, but I have heard over the last several years of people making comments that, you know, you can't officially be a bird dog in a particular market or someone out looking. There's other ways that you can work that out to have people and build relationships. That's a great idea. I never even thought of that, Steve, about talking to the trash people. I mean, oh my gosh, what a great resource, because they're going down these same streets. They have a route that they drive and they hit that route, you know, twice a week, once a week, every week. And they're going to see all those household belongings out. And so that's a great idea. I thank you very much for sharing that. So you have really, your investor ID. Let's talk a little bit about your investor ID and what that means to you, Steve, as an investor ID, and how important that is to figure that out. Because you talked a little bit about that earlier about, you know, the different types of real estate and the different types of properties you might want to go after. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, when I got my education, I was like a kid on Christmas Day. The first thing I went to was creative acquisitions. Now, I don't recommend that necessarily for insane people, but I went through creative acquisitions and I said, wow. So I actually started writing offers and making deals, and I knew they wouldn't work, but guess what? They did work. But I've done everything from owner financing with 0% interest, no money down. I've done private lenders. I've done subject twos. Most of my properties that I hold long-term, I pay for them out of a self-directed IRA. A self-directed 401k. When I left AIG American General, they gave us an option to let them handle our money and keep the money. Again, I'm not talking about a 401k. I'm talking about the company pension. I could leave it with them. I could take it in a monthly income, or I could take it and invest it myself. Well, again, I'm not interested in 1%, 4%, 5%. Really, 30% is my target. So my investor ID, if you want to excite me about a property, find me a property that I can sell to a blue collar, honest, salt of the earth person, or a young family or older family that I can owner finance and keep it in my, keep it in a price range that they can afford, which is almost always lower than what they would be paying rent. Helping people get in homes that have trouble. There's not a lot of people helping those folks out there. And that's my target. Now, I said earlier, I'll buy almost any property at some price.
Absolutely. So do you see, as you move forward, will you stay in acquiring rental properties, whether they're long-term or short-term, or will you also mix in a little bit of flipping as you go along?
Well, if it's going to be a very expensive home, and I've done some expensive homes too, I'm not going to hold them in my portfolio, because something Bill Omey's class will teach is that if you have $100,000 house, you can get X number of dollars rent. If you have a $200,000 house, you can't get twice as much rent. And if you have a $300,000 property, you can't get 3 times as much rent. So the ROI based on a fair market rent is best in the lower areas. So if I'm doing in my target, I'm going to hold them. I'm looking for properties that I can hold long term.
Right. Absolutely.
That's
So
what
again-
I really want to do.
Yeah. So again, Steve, one of the things to share there is that this business is about the numbers, and the numbers have to work. And if you come across a property where, and you're in this position where you can do a flip, but if you come across a property where the numbers work to flip it, and the return is where you want it to be as far as your time, your investment, or using someone else's funds, OPM, or a self-directed IRA, then you determine, because of your knowledge level and your community that you've connected with, you talk about Bill Olney quite a bit, and I'm a huge Bill Olney fan. And so that's when you decide, okay, this is better a flip than a rental property, okay? Just like you talked earlier about this particular town, I think you called it a townhouse that you're doing right now, you showed the slides with, you're going to do different finishes in this for the rental property that you might do if you were different that you might would do for a flip. So again, this business is always about the numbers. And one of the great little things I always love sharing with people when I talk to them, because a lot of folks who are just getting started or have never done a deal, or they're just checking this out. There'll be people on here today checking things out. Is we, as an investor, we make our money at acquisition. We make our money at acquisition. Yes. Do you put the money in the bank if you sell at the end when you sell a property? Yes. Or do you put the money in the bank when you're collecting monthly rent? Yes. But if you acquire the property at the right price, that's truly when you're making your money. That's truly when you're, doing your, again, making your money. So Steve, we're getting toward the end of this. I do want to share with everybody that if you'd like to learn more about what Steve has talked about today, I talked about Bill Olney, talked about the classes, talked about the community. We do have right after this, starting at the top of the hour, we have a live business meeting and live intro. And if you'd like to attend that, guys, get back to who invited you and they can get you set up and get you that link. So Steve, I'd love to hear some final things, maybe some good words of wisdom, or just some an additional golden nugget you would like to share with people. That would be awesome.
Well, I have one, and this is personal. It's relative to me. It's designed to inspire, and hopefully somebody out there, this maybe whet your appetite. I want you to know that if I can do this, you can too. You can do this too. I don't consider myself special. I've been blessed extremely well, but the Renatus education has equipped, and the community has empowered me to do this. And you can do that too. And I'll share with you, I mentioned earlier the definition of success, but the better definition, in my opinion, Scott, is going where God wants you to go, doing what God wants you to do, and becoming what God wants you to be. So, Scott, I appreciate immensely the opportunity to even be associated with folks like you and to be part of your program today.
Well, Steve, you've done a wonderful
Amen,
job.
amen.
Yes, you've done a wonderful job. And I'd like to remind everybody that if you'd like to come out and join us again next Saturday, we'll be on at the same time. We'll be featuring another investor. And you can bring a guest, bring a friend, bring a wife, bring a husband, bring a significant other with you, and get back to who invited you out today. And we so much appreciate you, Steve. And I'm just, I'm so blessed and just full of gratitude that, our paths have really crossed again. And I believe everything happens for a reason. And I thank you for your time. I want to thank everybody who joined us today for taking an hour out of their day, and get back to who invited you, and check out more things that we do as a community. So for now, let's wrap it up. Have a great Saturday, a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the next live Zoom property tour Saturday. No, let's see, what date would that be? That'll actually be the 6th of November. We'll see you then, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Take care, Steve. Take care.